Randy Triplett with Creative for Kids. Since 2000, I've been designing theme environments for children's ministry spaces around the United States. It is a very rewarding occupation and an exciting occupation, and I thoroughly enjoy doing it. But I think it's important that we ask questions when installing a children's ministry theme that are relevant to creating a dynamic theme environment. So today what I want to talk about is what should you consider when looking into a children's ministry theme. So again, creating a theme is exciting, it's fun, it's motivating, it creates momentum in your children's ministry. All those things are true. But there's important questions that you need to ask ahead of time before installing a children's ministry theme. So here's a couple of questions that I feel like you need to really consider asking yourself when you start looking into designing and developing a theme for your children's ministry. First and foremost, why do you want to develop a children's ministry theme? And I think initial comments that I hear are, well, the church down the street has one, or I saw one online, or I visited a church that had one, and these are all cool spaces and they're great, and all of that is true. But I think you have to answer that question of why does it need to be in your facility? Not in a derogatory way, but I think in an informed way, okay? And I think another good question for you is, what would then be the goal of installing a children's ministry theme in your children's ministry space? I think that a children's ministry theme has to serve you in some capacity. Now, I believe it serves you by drawing families in, and I've seen that over and over again. But I think you have to ask yourself the question, what is your goal for installing a children's ministry theme in your space? And how is it going to affect your ministry in a positive way? Okay? And then lastly, I think a good starting question is, what kind of budget do you need to have available for developing a theme like this? Because doing themes on a large scale isn't cheap. Do I feel like it's a cost-effective, rewarding type investment? Absolutely, and we'll discuss that shortly. But I think you need to think about a budget for your children's ministry and where that budget falls within getting a good return on your investment, and we'll talk about that shortly. All right? So when beginning a theme, I think you need to think about this. You need to begin with the end in mind. Meaning, every children's ministry theme is going to have an end. You can design and develop some of the most phenomenal stuff on the planet, and you can invest thousands, quite frankly, hundreds of thousands of dollars into your theme. With animatronics, 3D sculpted stuff, you can really blow it out. But before you do that, know that your theme will have an end at some point in time. Now, I believe good quality themes should last 8 to 10 years. Now, will they last longer than that from a physical standpoint? I know at Creative for Kids, our theming will last beyond 8 to 10 years from a structural standpoint, meaning we use very high quality paints. It's not going anywhere. But will it still serve you after 8 to 10 years? That's the question. And I think you need to evaluate your children's ministry space in that time frame and go, is it still doing what we had our goals for it when we installed it? Meaning, is it still drawing families in? Is it still having the same effect that it had when we first installed it? And if not, then it's at that time you need to revisit, is this a good time for a change? Is this a good time to reinvest in another type theme? Because maybe the demographics of your church community has changed. Maybe that theme isn't really as relevant as it once was because the dynamics have changed. So there's a lot of good reason why you may want to consider changing, but no, in my opinion, 8 to 10 years, you need to consider that. So when you think about your budget, you need to think about your time frame. When you think about your goals, you need to think about your time frame, okay? All right, so the next thing that I think you need to do is bring some wisdom to the table when you think about designing a children's ministry theme. If you've never seen one and you see one for the first time, it is exciting, it is fun, it is very motivating. All of these things, again, are true. It's exciting installing this stuff. And when you see it for the first time, I mean, truly, even for me, and I've been doing this for 12 years at this videotaping, it is exciting stuff. But you need to bring some wisdom to the table, meaning know when to say when, okay? You can install themes in a variety of ways, meaning Creative for Kids, we are primarily a large-scale theme mural company. You can have 2D relief type stuff installed. You can have sculpted stuff. You can have animatronics. You can have smoke machines, fog machines. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. Knowing what best suits your church and your church environment and having the wisdom to know that, to me, is really key. And quite frankly, I believe that it's up to the design company to make an assessment of your church and be fair when advising you about what is probably a good fit for your children's ministry space. Okay? So I'm going to give one quick example of what I mean by this and how you need to bring some wisdom. I spoke to a church not too long ago who invested $500,000, $500,000 in having a 3D sculpted building facade put down one of their primary hallways. Okay? Now, in discussing with me, we were talking about, they were building a new building, we were talking about installing some theme in a new space. But during that discussion, I began to inquire about the 3D sculpted building, and it had been 2 years down the road, and now, and what did they feel about that? And their initial response was, we made a mistake. We invested all this money into this space, and 2 years later now we don't like it. We actually dislike it quite a lot because people aren't excited about it anymore. It's intrusive. It's in the way. It sticks out 4 feet in a 10-foot hallway. It just doesn't have the impact that we had when we first installed it. Now, this was only 2 years down the road. So that was their feeling at the time. Now, at the exact same moment, I get a trade magazine for our industry, and in that trade magazine was an interview by this very company, no dig on the company, but by this very company, they were being interviewed, and they referenced this church. And they're referencing, now this is 2 years down the road, they're talking about how the church was excited and they were so impressed by the work, and it was really spot on for what that church needed. And in the end, 2 years later, this church is telling me an exact different story. Now, I'm not saying anybody's wrong or right here, but I am saying is that you need to think big picture long term and know that, again, in 8 to 10 years, and you want to make that change, is that $500,000 investment, is it, you know, I always kind of joke, is it going to be like losing a family member or a body part because you've invested so much money into that, you know, it's going to be tough to change over time. So again, things to consider when doing that. I think the next question you need to ask is, what areas do you want to consider theming? Meaning, we believe that there's prime real estated areas. First, we believe that check-in areas are the first and foremost area to consider theming. The second area I believe for theming is primary hallways. And then third areas I believe are kids' church rooms. The fourth area I believe are classrooms. And the reason I believe it's fourth, because the fewest amount of people will see a classroom theme design. So that is the progression of what I believe from greatest importance to the least that you need to consider when looking at a theme. I think the next question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of time frame should I expect from the company that you hire? Time frames are going to vary by industry, by company. For Creative for Kids, ideally we like to have a 6 to 8 week time frame for a turnaround. It can be done sooner than that. We've done stuff within 3 weeks before, but it sure does put pressure on. So I would say a 6 to 8 week time frame. Larger environments obviously are going to take a little bit longer time frame to consider. So on bigger projects, maybe even a 3-month time frame. Not so big projects, 6 to 8 weeks. That should be a good time frame for you to consider. The next thing is, what should you expect from your company when they come in and design your theme? At Creative for Kids, I can tell you that we strive for perfection in the sense of we want to give you the greatest quality experience that we can possibly give you when you consider your theme. So when you look at your company, whoever that company is, you need to, quite frankly, look at their history. You need to call. Don't just go with what maybe a company references you. Hey, give this church a call or this church a call. You need to ask them for a random grouping of churches that you can call on your own, and make some calls and ask the questions. How was the company when they installed it? How were they when they were on site? How were they dealing with the head of the project? And then how were they, since the project has been installed, what has been the quality of it? I think you need to ask those questions. When your company is on your location, I believe they need to be unobtrusive. They need to be there respectful of the environment that they're in. They need to handle themselves professionally, and I mean this when I say this, both in your church and then in the community while they're there serving you. If your company is not being a good witness for you and your church when they're in your community, going places they shouldn't go, representing themselves, inevitably they're going to talk. People are going to find out that this company is serving your church. And so I believe those companies need to, including mine, need to present themselves with the highest possible integrity that they can, that they represent you, and understand that I kind of joke with my clients that I'm like a part-time staff member. And I really do think like that. I used to be an associate pastor, so we handle ourselves at Creative for Kids with a pretty high integrity, and rightfully so. And so you should expect that from the company that you hire. They should handle themselves with the highest of integrity, and they should handle themselves with the best in dignity. Okay? Okay, so lastly, let's talk about what should the end result be of your theme. The end result from a practical standpoint should be this. It should be exactly what you asked for. It should minister to the families and the church members in your community. It should be of the highest quality, meaning from a long-term standpoint, it should really stand up to the test of time, to the traffic that it's being presented to. It really should serve you well from a practical standpoint. From an exciting standpoint, it should be everything and more that you thought it would be. It really should, when you see it and your folks see it, there should be a sense of excitement, a sense of motivation, a sense of momentum should be created by your theme. It really should be, particularly initially, an exciting time for you and your church to demonstrate to both your church members and your community your love for them, your commitment to their family and their kids, your interest in being the best that you can be for your community. So installing a children's ministry theme is a fun and exciting endeavor, and these are just some of the things that you should consider when designing your theme. It should be one of the most fun, invested times that you'll have in your children's ministry. And that's it. I'm Randy Triplett with Creative for Kids. If you have any further questions about what you should consider when designing a theme, visit our website at www.creativeforkids.com or call us toll free 877-637-0122. I know at Creative for Kids, it's always been my goal to empower you with the knowledge you need to make the best decisions for you and your church.